Okay, hello everyone. This is the TM105. This is the last meeting. This is meeting 7 in our Introduction to Computer Programming course. Let me start by the objectives. See, we basically already know everything in the course. We know how do we have a string, we know the primitive data types, we know how to create arrays, two-dimensional arrays, how to use a loop to process elements, or simply how to use a loop to take repetitive or do repetitive action, take repetitive input. We already know the increment and the decrement. Now, what we will take in this meeting, in this tutorial, is additional information. You see additional information about classes, some alternative way to if else using the ternary operator. This is known as the ternary operator. We take another alternative to the if else to branching using the switch. Special details about increment and decrement. Another type of for loop, an enhanced for loop, an easier way to write a for loop, and an alternative way to write a while loop, which is the do while. Now let me start first of all by the class string. There are several examples over here in the slides. I will show you the slides and then I will go to my board in NetBeans. You see, first of all, there is an excellent slide over here providing a full comprehensive comparison between what an array is and what a string is. First of all, the declaration. You see, this is how we declare an array and directly give it some values. So you use the word string with an uppercase S to declare a string and give it a value. Now you can imagine that both are going to create a collection of values. You see, 1935 will be indexed at 0, at 1, at 2, at 3, like different memory locations, each storing one of the values. The same for the string, the J, the A, the V, the A, each at a different index, and they both start with 0. And you can see that array is a reference. You can see this arrow. It is pointing. It doesn't have a value. It is pointing to a location where the values are stored. The same for the string. The string is a reference as well. So basically they are very similar. Now you can check how many elements programmatically using the attribute length. You see, array.length, the name is array, here it is. If you use array.length, this will give you 4 because count them 1, 2, 3 and 4. This is not the index. The indices are from 0 to 3. 0, 1, 2, 3 means I have 4 elements. Now for the string, I use a method. It's not a property. So I need to use word.length. You will know about these methods in the object-oriented part of the Java programming, which is the course after the TM105. Now to access a single element, you see array at 0 is 1, array at 2 is a 3. For a string, you use a method. So word.char at uppercase A, and then you give the 0, this will give you the J, this will give you the V. Now note that this V is lowercase, okay? This is the same as this V over here at index 2. Now how do you write a loop? For int I equals 0, you see the same for the string. For int I equals 0, I less than, you need the length. So you already know how to calculate the length. And then I plus plus. So the structure of the for loop to iterate over each and every element in any of these two objects is basically the same. Now let's go into more details about string. Now read this slide, and exceptions will be discussed in a different course, but you can easily notice that how you create a string, and we will see what the new string when we will use it. And if you create a string with no characters, the length is 0, but you have to use the double quotes, of course. Now how to read a single character. You declare the character, you use the scanner. Now assume the scanner is labeled, has the identifier input. So input dot next is going to take one single word, and from this word, if you take char at 0, means you are taking the first character. Notice that we are not reading a character, we are reading the whole word from the user and then extracting the character at index 0. Alright, now let me go quickly over the following. I will not explain these, you can read them later on. You see, this is a whole example about strings and the output, so you can try this out yourself. There's another example over here, you can try this yourself. A third example, class string 3 with functions inside of it. A fourth example, I will be doing this fourth example first, I will be explaining it, and then there's a fifth example about string. I will do some of these methods, I will just write them and check these methods, or how can we make use of different methods. This is an important slide, I will be covering this. So let me go first to my board before going to NetBeans. Let me start by writing a few pieces of code. Let's assume I have string s1 and I directly give it the value hello. And I have string s2 and I will give it the value hello. Alright, so I have two strings, s1 and s2, both with the value hello. Now something special about Java and the programming. Like, let me take this box over here and let's assume that this is my memory, this is my RAM, this is where everything while the program is running is stored. When you reach in programming this line, the first line, you see string s1 equal to hello. Assume this is part of your main method. What Java is going to do, it will create somewhere in memory with, of course, 5 different memory locations to store the word hello. You see, this hello will be stored at some address in memory. This is the string hello. I will assume that this is at index 1417. You see, this is just any number that I just created. I am assuming this is where it will be stored. This is an empty memory location, so hello would be stored at a random memory location. So when Java sees the literal hello, you see, this is the literal hello. Let me put a box around it. This is the literal hello. This is a value, a string value. This would be directly stored in a random memory location, and this is the address, and the values are the same as what you wrote. Now, when Java goes to the assignment, here, let me remove this box. Now this is the assignment. When Java reaches the assignment, Java knows that it needs a variable called s1, so it will create the s1 for you. This would be identified by s1. Now, of course, it is at a memory location. I'm not putting the memory location over here, but now you know that the memory location identified by s1, you see, you have a direct access to this memory location by the name s1. So it has an address. I did not put it. Maybe this s1 is at some address, let's say 2196. You see, maybe, we don't know, it's random. But you do not need, as a programmer, you do not need to know this address. All you have to know is that you can refer to it by s1. Now the assignment is going to take this 1417 and store it as a value. You see, this is the assignment. It's stored as a value. So this is the same as if we are creating a reference where it is in memory, where it is in memory. Now let me go to the other line. String s2 is equal to hello. Alright, so now string s2 is equal to hello. So let me create this s2. So Java is now going to create a variable called s2. s2 is going to be at some location in memory, and it can hold a value. So let me put a fake memory location. So let's assume a random one. Let's assume it is 1988. So this is the address where s2 is at, but you do not need to know it because you already have the name of the variable s2, and in programming you can use the name of the variable. You will not memorize the memory addresses. Note that every time you run the program, these memory addresses are going to change. They are random. They are not always the same. So if I run the program another time, the same scenario but with different numbers. Now when I do the assignment, you see, Java is going to put the address 1417 because it knows that this literal hello is the same as the previous literal. It knows where hello is in memory. Because you are using literals, Java knows where hello is in memory. Alright, now let me add a third line. String s3 is equal, and assume I have or maybe not the scanner, maybe not, let's not use the scanner. Let me take just creating a string using the new keyword, like this is what was explained. You can read it. Reading it was going to create the same new string, taking it from the user, like using scanner. Input.next is going to do the same as creating a new string with the value hello. Now if you read it in English, you see new string. So this is not the same as the literal. New string means create a new memory location, somewhere new in memory. This is it, a new memory location, and put the value hello in it. So let me put this at some other memory location like 1765. Again, these are just random numbers. So this is a new string with the value hello. Now you see I have two hello in memory. I have the literal hello where Java created it for me, and Java knows where it is located, and I have a new string, a new memory location with the same value. Now this string s3, this is going to create a memory location for s3 also at a random address. So this is randomly in memory, and this will be identified by s3. Here's my s3, and let me put some random location such as 1 2 3 4. This is a random memory location. This is where s3 is, but as a programmer I can use s3. Now s3 is going to take where the new string hello is, so it's going to take the new value. So it's going to take the 1765 as if it is pointing to this new address. Alright, now let me write a few lines of code. If I do if, you see, s1 is equal to s2, this will be true. If I do if s1 is equal to s3, this would be false. The first one is true because the value of s1 is 1417, and it is equal to the value of s2, 1417. So you see, when you use the equality, you are not comparing values, You are comparing the value of the variables, the reference. So S1 and S2 have the same reference. S1 equal S3, this is false because 1417 is different than, let me put different than as a programming symbol, is different than, it is not equal to the value of S3, which is 1765. You see, a variable, if it's not primitive, it is a reference. If it is primitive, such as an integer, it's directly a value. Directly a value. But if I do if S1 dot equals to S2, alright, this is definitely true. Now what I am comparing over here is whether hello is equal to hello as two strings, and they are identical, they are the same. Now if you do if S1 dot equals to S3, this would be true as well, because the value in the reference 1417 is hello. It is the same as the value in the 1765, which is hello, and they are both written the same way. So now you know, when you are comparing references and when you are comparing actual values. This has been discussed earlier, but however it is relisted over here in order to refresh all your knowledge about strings and make sure you know how you work with the strings. Let me add one more line to the declarations. If I declare integer number and I put the value 7, for example, now what happens in memory? Now this might be obvious already, or it might need to be revisited. You see, this is a memory location. Here it is. And let me put some sort of reference for it. This is number. And let me add a reference. Let's say this is at 1122. These numbers, again, these numbers in red, these are random because RAM stands for random access values. So these are random access memory. So random. And now inside of it, this is a primitive type. This is 7. So you see, with primitive data types such as the int, you store the value directly. It's not a reference. So if you compare number to another variable, another primitive data type, it will directly compare the contents. It does not need to know where in memory the other value is located. Now why is that? The only purpose, because of that. You see, I wrote hello as it is, but technically this hello is not a single memory location. You see, this hello is several memory locations. So maybe it's better to have them as a different color. Means that it is a collection of memory locations. The first one starts at this address, and you know that you have indices 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4 for all the characters. Alright, now let me do a little bit of work on strings. I will not do this example. This is very clear. If I go back to the slides, this is the example over here. This is the one I just explained. You can run this example over here and you can check the output of what it will give you, and you can try to modify the code. I will be doing the example of a palindrome. So let me first go to my board, explain what a palindrome is, and then I will do it on NetBeans. A palindrome. Palindrome is a word that can be read the same in both directions. Let me give you an example. You say level. If you flip level, it will be the same. So technically, why is level a palindrome? You see, L and L, they match. E and E, they match, and of course V with itself, it matches. It matches. Let me give you another palindrome. Noon. Again, end and N, they match. O and O, they match, and do not have any more characters. Now, let me give you something that is not a palindrome. Something that is not a palindrome. So let me write over here, not palindrome. The word hello. You see, hello is not a palindrome. H and O, they do not match. An easy way, you see, an easy way to test if a string is a palindrome, an easy way to test if the string is a palindrome is to compare the string with its reverse order of characters. Alright, let me show you. Hello is different than OLLEH. You see, this is reverse. However, level is the same as level. Just flip it. If you flip level, you get level. So it's a palindrome. Hello, flip it, OLLEH, they are not identical, they are not the same. So I can use, for comparison, I can use the dot equals method. So let me put over here the parentheses because it's a method. So I can use the equals method. Equals method, when I compare two string, the string with the reverse, it's going to tell me whether it's a palindrome or not. So I need to write this code. In order to write it, I need a way to reverse the string. Now there might be a method already available in Java, but we will write the code for it to practice on how to process a string one character at a time. So let me go to my NetBeans. Here's my NetBeans. And let me start a new project. Right. Here's my project. Let me remove these comments to have to keep a little bit of way so that I can just focus on the code. I will be taking the string from the user. So let me import my scanner. So this is import java.util.scanner, and I will declare my scanner. Scanner input is equal to new scanner of system.in, and now let me declare the word I will be reading. So this is the string word, and I will provide a prompt. I need to read a word from the user. So this is system.out.print, and enter a word, and I will read it. So this is word is equal to input dot next. I only need a single word. So if the user provided more than one word, you can still read it, by the way. If you want, you can read a next line, because you can have a phrase as a palindrome, not only a single word. And you see a whole phrase with the spaces inside of it. So you can use a next line. Alright, so now I have a word that I have taken from a user. Now usually I prefer to write the methods before the main. Let me write the methods before the main. Let me start by writing a method. So this is public, and this method is going to return a string, and I will call it reverse. Alright, now this reverse is going to take a string. I would put over here text. in order not to be using the same variable word, even though you know that it will be a different scope. It doesn't matter. So I have text, which is I am taking, maybe we need to put over here, it's not a word as well. However, we are taking a word from the user. Let's keep it. Let's keep it. We could write phrase, for example, because I later decided to take a whole line. Anyway, let's keep it. It doesn't matter. You get the idea. Now I need to reverse the string and return it. So I need to declare uh, a new string. This would be my return value. I will call it the retval, which stands for return value, and I will start with the empty string. Now I need to start adding characters from the end of the string. So I need a for loop. I know that I have to process the array. Now there are two ways of doing it. You could, if you want, process it forward, or the easiest way is to think about it that I am processing it backwards. For int I is equal. You see, the string is called text dot length, but this is not the first character. You see, this is the number of characters. So this will give you a problem. If you go outside the bounds of the string, it will crash. If you have 5 characters, the length is 5, but the last index is length -1. So start with the last index. As long as I is greater or equal to 0, you need the 0, because it is the first index, and I minus minus, you would be decrementing the value of I. Now retval plus equal, you see, I am concatenating, I am adding to this string text dot. I need a character, so I need a char at the index I, and the last word is going to be return retval. Now this method, just as a comment, because you see, we shouldn't be teaching you something that is not good in programming. This method is not a very good method. I just have to put a comment over here that this is not the best way to reverse a string, because actually in this method you are using a lot of memory. Every time you create a new string, like even if you are concatenating, you would be creating another memory location. So just be careful that this is not a good practice in programming. However, for the purpose of this exercise, this is good enough. So basically I am taking characters from the string, and I am just updating my return value. So I am concatenating them one after the other. I will show you what this method does. Here, let me take this method. I will go to my board and I will show it to you on the board. Okay, here's my board. This is the method that I wrote. Here it is. Now assume I will give the value for text like HELLO. This is the value for text. So assume I am sending this text the value hello. Retval, you see, this is just the logic. This is not technically how it is occurring. Let me put an arrow over here. String retval equal to nothing. This means that I created an array with a string, with no characters. Now, for int I equal to text dot length, you see the text is hello. So I is going to take the number of characters. I is now 5. Is I greater than 0? Yes. So what you are doing over here, you are concatenating retval plus equal, you are adding to it the character at, this is I is length minus 1, my mistake. Length is 5. This is length minus 1. This is 4. Alright? So text 1 dot length 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 minus 1, I is 4. I is 4. So now ret val plus equal text dot char at I. Now this is string hello. This is string hello. If I am to enlarge it a little bit and put the indices, this is index 0, this is index 1, index 2, index 3, and O is at index 4. Now what you are actually doing over here, you are concatenating the character at 4. So now the character at 4 is O. You see, this is my new ret val. I go back to the loop. I minus minus, now I becomes a 3. Is I greater than 0? Yes. Or equal? Yes. Update ret val with the character at 3. You see, the character at 3 is the L. Now go back to the decrement. I becomes 2. Is 2 greater or equal to 0? Yes. Update the ret val with the character at 2, which is another L. Go back over here, subtract the I is now 1. Is I greater or equal to 0? Yes. You enter the loop, update the text with the character at 1, which is E. You see, at 1 I have E. Go back over here. Okay, no, I need to take this arrow. Go back over here. Now subtract the I becomes 0. Is I greater or equal? Yes, it is equal. So you go into the loop one more last time, and now add the value at 0, which is the H. Go back to the loop. I becomes negative 1. Is negative 1 greater or equal to 0? No. You exit the loop, you return. You see, this is the value you will be returning. So this method is going to give me OLLEH. Alright, now let me go back to my NetBeans. Let me write another method over here. Public. Now I need a Boolean method, a true false. So public Boolean is palindrome. I need to test whether it is a palindrome. And I need to give it a string. I will call this string text as well. Now this method is going to check, you see, if the text dot equals to the reverse of text, return. Okay, I need parentheses. Let me remove this line and rewrite it. Return true. Else return false. See what I am doing. Is palindrome is going to take text. It's not reversed. It will check if the text you are taking is equal. Now call reverse. You see, when you call reverse, you will have the text in reverse. If these two values, the regular one and the reverse of it, are equal, then it is a palindrome. Return true. Otherwise, return false. So you only have one test to do. Now let me go to the main method. System.out.println, and let me put over here maybe let's say this is the word. I will concatenate it. Is palindrome, and I will put the result over here, plus I will call the is palindrome, and I will send the word. Okay, so all right, I have an error. All right, I did not notice this earlier. You see, the problem is that main is a static method, and I forgot to use the static over here. So this is static, and this is public static. You can only call static methods from inside a static method. You see, if main is a static, so all your methods should be static, and this is how we took them in TM105. In the next course, maybe M251, you will take the methods that you will write methods inside other classes that are not necessarily static. Alright, so just add static for all your methods. Here, let me reduce the font a little bit. Okay, here's the full code appearing on a single slide. Alright, now let me run and test this program. Enter a word level. So level is palindrome true. Let me run it again. This is the hello. Hello is palindrome false, so the program is working properly. Alright, now before I go to another back to the course, to another different concept, I will just update. This is palindrome to be written in a different way. But let me take the code. And let me explain over here on the board what the ternary operator is. Ternary operator. Alright, first let me put the explanation. When you write an if-else, alright, so like if, for example, and you test, let's say x is greater than 5. If it is, then y is equal to 6, else otherwise y is equal to 8. You see, this is just some fake code. You can write it. You see, the whole if-else is not to decide on a branch, but to decide on a value. When the if-else is trying to modify a value or return a value, you can use the ternary operator. So y is equal. You see, this is the alternative way of writing it. What I need to provide here, let me put a line over here. What I need to do, I need to modify the value of y. Y is going to be equal. Now y is either 6 or 8. So you start with a condition, x greater than 5, and you put a question mark. You see, is x greater than 5? If it is, then y is 6. You see this first part? The ternary operator, and let me put over here question mark and colon. Okay, this is the operator. The first part is the question mark. You are checking the condition. You see, if this is the condition, is it greater than 5? Yes. So the value of y is 6. You see, y is equal to 6. Now otherwise, this is the else. The value of y is 8. So this means that y is equal to 6 if true, and y is equal to 8 in case the condition is false. So if the condition is true, y equal to 6. If this condition is false, y equal to 8. So this is the value when the condition is true, and this is the value when the condition is false. Now let's do this one over here as a ternary. You see, now I am not assigning a value, alright? I am returning a value. I have the condition text dot equals reverse of text and I have opened 1 2 3, I need to close 3 parentheses. You see, I need to return either true or false. So I test this condition. If this condition is true, I return a true. Otherwise, I return false. This is the ternary operator. This is the ternary operator. Well, one best way to write it. You see, the condition is either true or false. Why test it and then decide on a return value? Here, let me put it in red. This is the best way to write it. Return text dot equals to the reverse of text. It is already a true false value. Why do you even need an if else or the ternary operator? Alright, so let me update my code to the first update and then update it to the last one. I will go over here. You see, I do not need the if, it's directly a return, and I'll put the question mark. This is true, otherwise I need to return false. That's it. You see, one single line of code. This is the ternary operator. If you run it, of course, you can test the same thing. Like, let's use noon. Alright, true, it is a palindrome. Let me use, for example, Friday. No, it's not a palindrome, false. Alright, now one last thing. Remove the ternary altogether because this value is already a true false value. So now you just return the reverse. So back again, here it is. This is, let's say, level. We already know it's a palindrome. And let's say hello. We already know it's not a palindrome. So now this is the complete code written in a proper way. Alright, let me go back to the slides. Alright, so this is the example that I have just explained. Now there's an if else over here. I wrote it in a different way, the output. This is only testing for level. I took input from the user. This is the reverse. They use the rev. You can check it, and this is why they use only a single return statement. Now there is this additional exercise about string of arrays. This has been done earlier in the tutorial about not the same. It was not arrays. I believe it was done in the tutorial about just reading different numbers and processing different number. I'm not sure if it was about arrays or not. Check it in previous tutorials. It's available again in the exercises. I will see which exercises I will be solving. Now this is the writing the ternary operator. You see, they tell you it's a shorthand of if else, but the problem is that you cannot have more than one statement in the if else. To be able to write it as a ternary operator, the if else must have a single value only. And here's an excellent path for true and the path for false. Excellent highlighting. You can see this is very clear, very obvious. Now I will go to another concept. This is an example. Okay, assigning a value to a string or assigning a value to b. You can read this example over here. Alright, now switch statement. This is another concept. Read about it, read the slides. I will be explaining this switch directly in NetBeans. We are now at a level where we can explain the code right away, I believe, especially that this is very similar to the if. There's the flowchart, the logic of the switch, and here we have the main parts of the switch. You see, the switch, you are not switching a condition, you are switching an expression. An expression can have several values. Now we will see why it might be better to use in some cases the switch than to use an if else, and when could it be exactly the same. And I will explain the importance of the break and the default statements. So there's everything explained over here and there is an example. I will be doing this example first, and then I will go to another example before I come back to the following. So let me go to my NetBeans. Here, let me remove all of this. I will keep the same project I am using. Alright, so this is the same part. I am reading a word from the user. Actually, let's not make it a word. Let's make the same example exactly. Let's see. Int number, and let me give a prompt. So this is system.out.print. Enter a number between 1 and 7. Number is equal to input dot next int. You see, I took a number from the user. Now I need to check this number. You see, if, okay, my mistake, if number is equal to 1, then system dot out dot print ln, the day is, let's assume day number 1 is a Monday, even though in the slides it is a Sunday. It doesn't matter. Else, now I can write another if, number equal to, and I will copy this. I will come over here. So this is Tuesday. You see, I can do it using an if else, and I can continue. Alright, so this if else, this is a logical way of writing it. So check, if number is 1, then it is Monday. If it is 2, it is Tuesday. If it is 3, it is Wednesday. 4. So you can write if else if, and put so many conditions. In order not to write that many conditions, you can simply switch. You see, switch is a keyword. What are you switching? I'm switching the value of number. Now notice that over here you can put an expression like number plus 4, because this will give you a different value, but I do not need it. So you can put any expression, but do not put a Boolean expression. Do not put the greater less than. Greater less than is only true false. So why do you need a switch if you only have 2 values? You need an if else for 2 values and not a switch. Switch means that this number over here can have multiple values. I know it can. It's an integer. It can have billion of values. Now, which values are you interested in? I am interested in the 1, and I will, before I continue, I am interested in the 2. Okay, let me just write them all. I will copy these. All right. So I'm interested in 1, I'm interested in 2, I am interested in 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And default means if it is not any of the following values. Now in this example, when I write default, means it is not any of the cases. It is not 1, not 2, not 3. It is an integer. So default could be 0, could be 8, could be minus 200, any integer other than the ones in the cases. Now the code of the case, you can start on the same line or start on a new line. It doesn't matter. You see, in Java you can add lines as much as you want. It doesn't matter. So system.out, this is system dot print ln, well, it is Monday, semicolon. Now let me do the same, and then I need to update one more time, but I need to show it to you before updating. Tuesday, so this is Wednesday, this is Thursday, we have Friday, Saturday, and we have Sunday. Now finally, like, value was not between 1 and 7. You see, I cannot say it's a day of the week. I already used all the days of the week. Alright, now this seems to be straightforward, very easy. However, we need to use the break. You see, let me put over here. Let me put over here as a comment. Break statement is sometimes needed with the switch. Alright? Needed. You need to use it. Now let me show you why. Let me show you why. Let me run this program. Let's say I entered 3. Now you would assume that the output is going to be it is Wednesday. No. You see, when I use the 3, it is Wednesday, correct, but it continued. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, value was not between. You see, something very wrong is given over here. Let's try it another time. Let's take 5. Friday, Saturday, Sunday value was not between. Now if I take a value such as -2, it will only give me the default. So only the default is now working. Alright, let me go back to my code. You see, when I used case 3, it gave me it is Wednesday. But what comes after Wednesday? These cases are just labels. So you have to read the code over here. You entered case 3. Means you started at line 14. Once you finish line 14, you will go to line 15, then line 16, then 17. Well, break afterwards. You can put the break on the line by itself. For example, here it is. This is easier to read. Or you can simply just use the break statement over here. So line number 14 now has 2 statements. You print and you go outside the switch. You break out of it. You break out of it. So this break statement, I need to put it after each and every case because this is the logic of my program. Now after the default there is no need to break because it's always the last one. So let me run it again. You see, 3, it is Wednesday. 5, it is a Friday. And let me put the -2, value not between. Let me put the 100, value was not between. Alright, this is one of the examples. Alright, now let me go to the exercises. Okay, see, write a Java exercise 1. Write a Java program that prompts the user to enter a word, then prints the number of vowels in this word. Vowels are A, E, I, O, and U. Now this time I will write it using a switch statement. You see, I will write this first program. I need to take a word from the user. So it's a string. And then I need to check how many vowels are in this word. Now I will assume that the word is always going to be a lowercase word. Alright, let me go to my NetBeans. And let me declare the word. Provide the prompt system.out.print. Enter a word, and I will read only one word. So this is word is equal to input dot next. Okay, I added a character by mistake. Now let me process this word. First of all, I need to count the vowels. So integer count, I will assume there are no vowels. You see, I declared integer count and gave it the initial value 0. Now I have the word. Now even though I will be using a switch, I cannot omit the case. I cannot omit the case. Here, let me put all the declarations first. Let me remove this from over here. Let me put it over here. So, for integer I equals 0, I less than, the string is called word, and I use the method length I++. Whenever you have arrays or strings, you can use a for loop easily to go one character at a time. Now instead of using an if, I'm going to switch. You see, I will be switching one value, word.char at, and this is char at the index I. Case. In case it was A, count plus plus break. Now I'll be modifying the code. In case it was E, let me copy the following. In case it was I, and in case it was O, okay, I will remove this space, or in case it was U. Alright, no need for a default. No need for a default because I do not need to do anything else. Now notice that the code is exactly the same. If two or more cases have the same code, you can use the same line for each. Like, for example, what does it mean if I remove this line? You see, take a look now at lines 13 and 14. In case it is A, you start at 13. There is an empty line, so you drop directly to 14, count plus plus, and you break. So now I merged A and E together. If I remove this line, you see A and E are joined together. I and O now are joined together. So basically what you need to do is simply join everything together, and there is no need for the break. You see, this is the switch. You can reduce the whole code. The code that was written was correct, but you can write it this way. If it is A, E, I, O, or U, add the counter by 1. That's it. Now let me write the last line. So this is system.out.print println number of vowels is equal, and let me put count. Let me run it and test it. Enter a word level, number of vowels is 2. Enter a word palindrome, number of vowels is 4. So this is a pretty simple exercise. Alright, now before I go back to the slides, let me keep the scanner. Maybe I will reuse this program over here, or maybe let's remove it. Let's focus only on the important code. I need to revisit the increment decrement, and what is the pre-increment and what is the post-increment, and this applies also to the pre-decrement and pre-increment. Let me write them over here. You see, pre-increment, this is plus plus, and you put a variable. Post-increment, this is x plus plus. Now let's assume that I have an integer x equal to 5 and an integer y equal to 6, or let me not give a value for y. Y is equal to x plus plus. Alright, system.out.println, this is the value of x. Let me put x is equal plus x, and system.out.println y is equal, and let me put the value of y. Now note that in this statement, you need to read this statement as Okay, y equal to x first, then x is equal to x plus 1. Alright, so this is two statements. I am using the post increment, means it comes last. Post increment, it will be the last statement. Now these are two statements, so the assignment took precedence over the post increment. The post increment is always done last. So now I know if I run this program, you see the value of y is going to take the value of x, which is 5, and then the value of x will be 6. So the output will be x is 6, y is 5. Check it out. X is 6 and y is 5, because I am using the post increment, means do anything else first and then increment. Now let me do another program. This time I will use plus plus x. You see, I will flip these. So this is x equal x plus 1, then y equal to x. So x equal x plus 1 means x, which was 5, it will become 6, and then y is going to take this new value, so y is going to take 6. So both x and y are 6. Alright, you can test as much as you want with these. Let me go back to the slides. Here's the explanation about the pre-post for increment and decrement, and there's an excellent example over here. You can trace it, and then you can even use it inside the switch or inside any other statement inside the print or whatever. Now notice that the only thing different over here, okay, you can see these two slides, 21 and 22. I'm just flipping between them. You can see the difference in output and the difference in the cases. Let me go to the first one. You see x equal 1, switch x plus plus, means the switch is going to use the x, and when this x is going to, when this switch, sorry, finishes, then x would be incremented. So switch x plus plus means the value of x in the switch is 1. So this is case 1. It tells you it is 1. And then outside, you see, outside the switch, x would be incremented, and then you go outside the switch. So now x becomes 2. X is 2 outside the switch. In this other example, switch plus plus x means before the switch you would increment the x. So this is case 2. It is 2. And then outside you will say x is 2. So these two, you have to check them out. They are basically very similar, very similar. Alright, now let's go to the alternative loops, the enhanced for loop and the do while. Let me start by the enhanced for loop. I will be doing this example. And you see, you can do it using the regular for loop that we are used to, or the enhanced for loop, which is somehow easier. Okay, it makes the code a little bit easier. Now you can use it with primitive data types as well. I will just be doing the example with a string. So let me go to my NetBeans, and let me remove all of this code. I will be using the same program over here. Let's assume that I have a string array called names, and this string is going to have like, for example, Barry. Okay, array, I need to use the curly braces. Clark. Okay. Bruce. And let's add one more. hal. Alright, now the way we used to process a string was to use a for loop. For int I equals 0 semicolon, I less than, names dot length, this is an array, we do not use parentheses, and then I plus plus. And inside the for loop, system dot out dot println, and we use the names at the index I. You see, the whole concept of using an index, if Java already knows how to calculate the size of the string, can't the Java just know how to remove one string at a time from the array, or one element at a time from the array? Well, of course. You see, you write for. Now you need a new variable. Let's say this new variable is a name, and I need to extract it from names. You see this notation, this colon notation. I need a name to be extracted from names. The only problem is that you did not declare the variable name. So over here, just like declaring the variable I inside the for loop, I declare the variable name. You see, string, this is an array of a string. I removed it from names. Now system.out.println name. You see, Java is going to take Barry, store it in name, print it, and then I telling Java take another one. It's going to be take Clark, store it in name, print it, then take Bruce, store it in name, and print it. Now these two are identical. Let me show you the output of both. You see, Barry, Clark, Bruce, Hal, Barry, Clark, Bruce, Hal. So identical output. So these two are identical. This is an easier way of simply writing a for loop. You will get used to this enhanced for loop, and no need to use indices. Now this is only useful when you are processing the whole array, Now let me do the same example but with primitive data types. Same example means an enhanced for loop. Assume I have an integer array called numbers with the values like 1, 5, 9, 2, 3, 6. For I need an integer called number from numbers, and maybe I need to, let's say I do not want to let's say I do not want to just print it. I need the sum of the values in the array. So integer sum is equal to 0, and sum plus equal. You see, number represent a single value in the array. Now I can provide output system.out.println the sum is equal, and I can concatenate it with sum. Alright, so here's my declarations, processing, that's it, very simple, no indices, and then provide the sum. You see, let me run it and we will check if the sum is correct. 1 and 5 is 6, plus 9, 15, plus 2, 17, plus 3, 20, plus 6, 26. So now this is the result. I started with 0, I added all the values by using the enhanced for loop. Alright, now let me go to the slides. You see, this is the slide. We just did something similar. Reusing methods before the do while. This example, this is part of the exercises. So let me go to the exercises over here, and this is exercise number 3. Write a Java method that takes 3 double arguments and returns the minimum, not the maximum, the minimum number among them. Include your method into a Java program that reads 3 numbers from the user. Call the method minimum and print the result. Alright, so I will do this example. This is minimum instead of maximum, and we will see what does it mean to reuse a method. I will go to my NetBeans. First of all, I will do it differently. I will write 2 methods. You see, public static double, this is a real number, and I will call it minimum, which takes double num1 and double num2. Alright, I will write the code in just a second. Now, I need another method. The same. I will copy it. But this time, this method is going to take 3. Double num3. You see the same method name, but different signature. We know that we can do that. Alright, let's prepare this program to take input. So this is import java.util.scanner. Let me go to the first minimum. Now this is very simple. If num1 is less than num2, return num1, else return num2. Now let me go to the second minimum. If now I need to make sure that I have the smallest value possible. You see, my if statement, I could check if num1 is less than them both num2 and num3. Alright, I could check if num1 is less than both num2 and num3. This is one way of doing it. But instead of actually doing it, you are free to declare a new variable. Like, let's say double min, or let's say new min. Now this is equal to, I will call minimum and I will send num1 and num2. You see, I have used my previous method minimum that takes 2 numbers. So new min is the new minimum between num1 and num2. Now I can directly return the minimum between the new min and num3. Well, I could have written it a different way. Instead of doing it 2 lines, you see, this new min, it has a value. It is the minimum between num1 and num2. So instead of this, just put the value and no need for this line. You see, first figure out the minimum between num1 and num2, and then figure out the minimum between that value and num3. So you are using this minimum twice inside your other one. You are reusing your method. Now let me declare the scanner. Scanner input is equal to new scanner of system.in, system.out.print. Enter 3 numbers. Let me read them. So let me declare double num1 is equal to input.next double, comma, num2 is equal to input.next double, comma, and num3 is equal to input.next. Even though I'm writing at the end now, it's fine. And do not forget the semicolon. Alright, so just have the 3 lines. If you want to use not the semicolon, just use comma, put each one on a line by itself. This is fine. Alright, there are commas and then there's a semicolon. This way you can see it all together. Now system.out.println, the minimum value is and I will just call minimum with num1, num2 and num3. Okay, this is not system. Now this is system. Alright, so let's check this code. This is the whole code. Here, let me zoom out a little bit. Now everything is visible on on the whole screen. Of course, I will be modifying this. Let me run it. Enter three numbers. So this is 3.4, 5.6, and 1.2. You see the minimum value is 1.2. Let's put the minimum in the middle. So 3.4, 1.2, 5.6. The minimum is still 1.2. It's in the middle. Let me put it first. 1.2, 3.4, 5.6. You see the minimum is the 1.2. All right. Now let me modify a little bit. You see, instead of actually writing this minimum, I do not need it. I need a method called minimum that takes the three values. Now you can either write the code by checking them, or you can use the math.min. Math.min. You see, that's it. Alright, let me test it. So now if I run my program, if I run my project, you see enter three numbers. Now let me use it as 1.2, 3.4, 5.6. You see the minimum is the first value. So when I read these three, 1.2 is num1. So minimum between 1.2, 3.4, 5.6. You see the minimum is 1.2. Let me run it again. 3.4, 1.2. Now num2 is 1.2 and 5.6. So you see the minimum is of course 1.2. And let me put it 3.4, 5.6, and let me put 1.2 as my num3, and the minimum is 1.2. Alright, let me go back to the slides. Now this is the same but for the maximum, and this is the long way where you need to compare each two together and modify the max. You can read this. This is very interesting. You can read this. Now this is an alternative way if you don't have the method math.max, and over here they are showing you the easy way where you can simply just compare it. So this is the same one but for the maximum and not the minimum. Alright, now you can read the alternative coding mechanisms for the for loop in case you do not put anything, or the while true. Now this is just an infinite loop. Be careful when using it. Your program might never stop. And read how you can put two statements in your initialization. You see there's a comma. You see I'm initializing sum to 0 and number to 1, and then I am adding sum and adding number. Like this is an alternative way. And the loop has an empty statement with a semicolon. This is rarely written. You can write it, check it out, but this is rarely written. We rarely do something like this, but this is a way of writing a for loop where you can put more than one statement in the initialization and more than one statement in the increment or decrement, the step statement at the end. Alright, again, another way for writing between for and while loop, like for and while loop can be written interchangeably. And then finally here's the last piece of code, the do while and the do while statement. Let me show you a difference between the while loop and the do while, and this is what's written over here, that it runs at least once. So I will go to my NetBeans and do this example, but here's an example over here. You can check this example after you finish, and this will be it for the slides, and make sure to work on all the exercises. So let me demonstrate this do while. I will use this same program, but here let me reduce it to the max. No need for scanner or anything else. This is my main method. Let me zoom in a little bit and let me write the while and the do while loop. Let's assume that I have an integer x and the value of x is 8. If you write while x is let's say less than 5, system.out, or let's say not system.out, oh yeah, let's say system.out.println loop iterated. You see, I am iterating inside the loop. And let me go over here, system.out.println outside the loop. Now this program, of course, x is 8. 8 less than 5 is false. You see, this is not going to iterate not a single time. Here, run it. You see, the loop body, loop iterated, was not provided on the output. So I just went outside the loop. Alright, now let me modify it. Let me modify it. Let's say x less than 10. Well, 8 less than 10, yes. You will go inside the loop. Now be careful. I did not modify the value for x. So let me just stop it over here. You see, this is an infinite loop. The condition is always correct. And let me put a break. You see, I will just break out of the loop. So now loop iterated, break, I went out, and now I am outside the loop. Alright, now this whole thing is going to be pretty messed up. I will do something very similar, but this time I will write a do. You see, a do while. You simply write the do keyword. System.out.println loop iterated, and then at the end you put the condition while x is maybe less than 5, and something very important. You see, this is the only place where you should put the semicolon after the while. So this means do, run, iterate, and then test the condition. You see, the condition is false. X is 8, it's not less than 5. But this loop is going to run at least one time. Here, let me run it. You see, loop iterated, and then I am outside the loop. Well, the problem is, if you put a break, because let me put over here, for example, less than 10, I will not modify x. I will run it. You see, an infinite loop. Of course, the condition is false, but let me put a break over here. Now the condition is true, it's always true, it's never false. So now if I put a break, regardless of the condition, I will enter the loop once and then the break. Now this, what I wrote over here, if you write a loop, a do while, to simply write output and the break, means you do not need the do while. You do not need, you are telling the program, do whatever it is, and then do not to check the condition. So this is just like not using a while loop at all. Now the benefit of a while loop is, let's say I have sum equal to 0, I have integer I equal to 0, while I is less than, or let's say, let's start with 1, even though adding 0 is the same, I less or equal to 10, sum plus equal to I and I plus plus, and then outside the loop I will simply just let me remove this line, let me put over here sum is equal sum. You see, I calculated the sum of the values from 1 to 10. If I run this program, they are 55. Try them out. 1 plus 2 plus 3 all the way to 10, it's 55. Alright, now let me write it as a do while and see if there is a difference. You see, I will remove this, Control X. I will put it over here with a semicolon, and I will write do instead. Alright, I did nothing. I did nothing. I simply modified the locations. Now let's check. Is it going to give you the same result? Alright? So it is 55. You see, they work the same way. They are very similar. Except for one thing. If I go back to the slides, This is the one I highlighted over here. The do while repetition is always going to execute at least once, and this is the semicolon behind the while. So now you know that we have something called a do while and how to use it. Alright, make sure to solve all the exercises. You have the solutions as well on the CLMS. There are not many exercises, but make sure to solve them all because they do contain a full review to most of the concepts that have been explained before. Alright, thank you for watching this video.